All right, Kelly. So I wanted to discuss this topic with you because I thought it was a very interesting topic. And we are at different points in our career where you have some experience, I have some experiences, but I think this is a common it's a common denominator in a lot of trainers, and that is imposter syndrome. Why do you think imposter syndrome is such a big thing in the dog training industry?
I think because dog training industry is kind of based on a lot of competition in like the professional setting. So most dog trainers, our hobbies are going out and doing sports, and you're constantly comparing your dog to the dog that's going next. And you're comparing your business to the next business. You've got that great Sprinter van now. I've got my like Forerunner. We're doing our best. So I think it's constantly a lot of comparison. And there's also so many great dog trainers too to compare yourself. And as you said, like we're all at different places, and it's hard to remember. And I've had that trouble myself of going like, I'm 23. Like I can calm down for a second. Like it's good to have aspirations, but I don't have to be at the end of my career right now.
Yeah, one thing that I think about is I feel like most people, my opinion is most people that are decent human beings are going to have some sort of insecurity about what they do, particularly if they're in the service industry. If you're in the service industry, it's not just yourself. Yeah, when you're competing, yeah, definitely it's just you and your dog, your club. But when you are helping people, when you're training other people's dogs, I think most people, I would imagine, have some sort of imposter syndrome. They have some sort of insecurity about their skill. And I feel like the people that don't have that are insufferable. They're intolerable. And regardless of what their skill level is, they're going to miss the mark. There's going to be something that they're going to miss, not even realizing they're missing it because in their mind, they're perfect. Let me ask you a question. So you're 23. How long have you been training dogs?
I started professionally at 19.
You've been doing it for 4 years, way ahead of most people already. I didn't start until I was like 26, I think. 26 or 27. So in terms of that, you're already way ahead of where I was at your age. So you've been doing it for 4 years. You're 23. You have your own business right now. How do you feel about your skill? Do you feel the imposter syndrome?
Absolutely, and it's I think we've actually talked about this before. I've definitely come to you with like my little stress out moments, because when I first started dog training, it was with one of the big commercial pet stores, and I thought I was like God's gift to dog training. And I think everyone kind of goes through those like that roller coaster of, okay, I know I don't know anything, okay, now I'm the best, and then you actually start learning stuff and you're like, I am nothing.
It's the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah. And then like now I'm at the point where I'm starting to like, you're like halfway back up that slope and you're like, I'm okay. I can train a dog.
And the reason I asked you that is you are a person, I'm not saying this because you're here, because I wouldn't say it if I didn't feel this way. But you're one of the few people that I would trust my dogs with.
Oh, thank you.
And clearly, I'm not the only one who feels that way.
Yeah.
There are people that are trusting you a lot with their dog, with very special dogs. So that's what I was saying earlier. I think most people that are decent are going to have some sort of insecurity about where they are.
Yeah.
It's like I know people in various skill levels. I know people that have been doing this for 20 years that have no imposter syndrome. They feel they are. You see them the way they carry themselves, which there is an admirable trait about that, I believe. But everything is in proportion. Everything needs to be in moderation. You know what I mean? But I know people that are, 20 years, and people have been doing it for like less than 5 years, that do feel like they're amazing, that they're untouchable. And regardless of whether they have 20 years of experience or 5 years of experience, one, they're intolerable.
Yeah.
People just don't like them, you know? And it's not that the he's too good. It's like the attitude of, you can't possibly know something I don't know
Yeah.
that they have, and so one, they're intolerable, and two, I've seen some of these people miss some things that they should have known, but they're completely oblivious to the fact that they don't know it, because in their mind they're untouchable.
Yeah.
So going back to, here we have somebody that has only been doing it for 4 years, 23 years old, that grown people, experienced dog trainers would trust and are trusting you with very special dogs. And then I know people that I'm like, no, I don't want that guy to ever be near my dogs.
Yeah.
Without me being there. So I feel like everything in moderation, like I personally feel like some imposter syndrome is healthy because it keeps you learning.
Yeah.
But too much of it is going to destroy you, because then you're going to feel like you are inadequate, and if you feel too inadequate, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
And then you just spiral into incompetence.
Yeah, it's like you have to be confident enough to make some mistakes, but then you also have to be understanding enough that, hey, I don't know everything that there is to know right now.
Yeah.
So it's like that little bit of a balance that self-regulates.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, prior to dog training, you were working with horses, right?
Yeah.
Did you did you grow up with horses? What was that like?
So we grew up with like pasture pet horses, but I grew up very very poor. And so I was super duper into horses. All I wanted was just to go be around them, everything. So I started actually working as like a working student, which I think super duper common in dogs and horses. Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely freaking abused. Like as a 9-year-old, you're out there at 5 a.m. doing all this stuff for free for your 1 hour lesson. And I think that really helped me, one, learn how to work to where I want to be, no matter mm-hmm. where I'm at financially in my mm-hmm. life. But then also being around the horses, you learn that you can't just freak out when stuff starts going bad. You have to have confidence when stuff starts going bad. And it really helps you learn how to actually handle animals and be around that kind of stuff.
So you have to have that, you have to have a little bit of what we're talking about. You have to have a little bit of that confidence, but also know that you don't know everything.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I've noticed about horses is, I haven't been around horses as much as you have, but I've talked to people who have, and some of the stories that I've heard, and even some of the footage I've seen, a horse could kill you.
Oh yeah.
So you can't be all, and you can't feel necessarily like you're untouchable. I would imagine, that's not my expertise. Yeah. But like, you can't just be like, oh, no, like, this is not gonna happen. I would imagine there's some sort of voice in your head that makes you probably think to yourself, I need to be aware. This is a new horse. I haven't worked with this guy. He doesn't know me. I need to be aware. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a place where if you do go into it overconfident, you just pull whatever horse that you find out and you start, like, let's say trying to jump it, it's going to throw you off and you're going to probably like break something. There's always that little bit of a risk. Yeah,
I can imagine. So yeah, that's a very interesting topic, I think. Now, you were talking about something very interesting, which is the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is, I believe everybody feels that way. And the way I explain it, the way I think to myself is this. I didn't come up with this, but it makes so much sense. There are different stages of competency. There is unconscious incompetence, meaning you don't know what you don't know. You're clueless, you don't know, right? Then there is conscious incompetence. You know that you don't know. And so as you start working towards it, you start getting better, you become conscious competent. You know what you're doing, but it takes effort.
Yeah.
You're good at it, but you're aware that these things that you're doing is why you're good at it.
Yeah.
And then you do that enough, and then you become unconscious competent. It's basically, you get so good at it that you don't even know how good you are at it, or you don't even know how you're doing it, but you're good at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? It's like learning how to drive. Like you could always break that down into any skill, but like most people know how to drive. You know how to drive, right?
Yeah.
So you remember at one point you didn't know, like you naive. You're like, I have no idea what this thing is. You're a little kid, right? And then you get excited, like I want to learn how to drive. You get in the car, your mom or your dad or somebody, and then you start driving, and then you realize how bad you are at it.
Yeah.
You start slamming the brakes, you start turning the wheel too tight, and then you become aware that you're bad at it. That's conscious incompetent. You're like, I am horrible at this, so I want to get better at it. So you keep doing it, and as you do it, you get better at it, and then you get better at it, but you're still aware. You're like, okay, my hands have to be here, whether you have a stick shift or whatever, like you have to have a sequence where you're like, okay, I have to do it this way. You're like thinking about what you're doing so it looks smooth. That's conscious competent. And then you do that for like about a year or so, and then you become unconscious competent.
Yeah.
Like you drove here, and I guarantee you probably didn't even realize how you got here. You just got in your car and then you were here.
Yeah, I was honestly more focused on eating my breakfast.
And you were eating breakfast while you were driving, right?
Yeah.
So that's how the stages of competency go. But it is in that last stage where you're more likely to make those mistakes. And it's also on the second stage where the Dunning-Kruger effect happens. You know, when you're learning how to drive and you're like, wow, I'm actually good at this. You're not quite the way you are now, but you're like, I'm actually really good at this. And then you think you know better than everybody.
Yeah.
And I know this because I've also recently taught my children how to drive. My daughter's 20, so I taught her to drive a couple of years ago. My son, I just taught him how to drive last year. And so this is fresh in my mind too. You know, they get to a point where they're like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm like, you don't know what you're doing yet. You've only been doing this for like less than a year. And that's where the Dunning-Kruger effect happens. You know, I remember it too. You went through it, you say you were 20?
When I started training dogs?
When you started to feel like, I know a lot about this.
I was honestly pretty quick to get narcissistic with it. I was probably still 19.
Still 19?
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question. How did you came out of that?
So I got the job at that big retail store, and then I found out, because I'm married, my husband's in the Army, so I have military spouse benefits, and I was like, oh, I'll use that to like go to the dog training school. Signed up for like the ABC little online thing, and they have an in-person portion. And I met the trainer for my area that would be doing the in-person portion, and I was like, oh hell no, like I cannot. Very, very stressful lady. And so I ended up reaching out to another trainer in the area, and who you taught at Starmark. And when she started telling me things, like I remember our first meeting, she was like, so tell me about operant conditioning, and I was like, what? Like, what? That's about where it crashed that day. That day it went in the toilet.
That's when the confidence kind of went down a little bit. I gotcha. All right, and so how you obviously your confidence went way down, but now it's starting to gain confidence again.
Yeah, I think especially in this past year for sure, where my business is starting to I'm kind of out having to do it all on my own.
Yeah.
I think that's really helped me. You know, at first it's like, oh my gosh, like everything sucks and it's horrible.
Yeah.
But then you start learning that like I haven't exploded yet.
Yeah.
I haven't been sued yet. Yeah, I'm still alive. Everyone's good. Nothing bad's happened. And the more you just get through it, the better I think it gets.
Okay, so now you're gaining confidence again, which is good.
Yeah.
Good. All right, and do you know anybody with that? You don't have to name names. I know we know a lot of the same people. But do you know off the top of your head anybody that is... So a couple of questions. Do you know anybody who is at the Dunning-Kruger stage where they feel untouchable, regardless of their level of experience? You do know them?
Absolutely.
Okay. Why are you looking at me like that?
Because I definitely know them too.
Okay, so So you do know these people,
Yeah.
right? Like, you're like, okay, you think you know everything, right?
Yeah.
And so, do they kind of match the same description that I gave? That they're kind of intolerable, or that
Yeah.
they miss the mark sometimes.
For sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And do you also know people that haven't? You probably do, because, like I say, if you know dog trainers, which you do, you know, we know a lot of dog trainers ourselves. Do you know people that have insecurities, but you go, man, this person is actually good.
I do.
You do,
Yeah.
right? And like you can see that contrast,
Yeah.
like where that little bit of insecurity just actually makes them better because they have that little bit of insecurity.
Yeah.
And another question: do you also know people that their insecurity is too much, that it affects them in a very negative way?
I do, and I think sometimes with certain types of people, that insecurity is almost a little bit of a self-indulgence kind of thing.
Really, it's interesting.
A little bit of like victim syndrome, just a
Wow.
little touch.
I didn't even think about it, but that makes so much sense.
To where it's like, if you would just kind of, you know, it's going to sound a little bit rude, but like look at yourself and say, you know, get the hell over it and
Yeah.
just fake it till you make it, you would be in a way better place personally and business-wise as well.
That is so interesting. So it's almost like, because I know what you're talking about. Now that you said that, like all these memories and all these images and all these people just came into my mind, where they're like, it's almost like they get validation, right?
Yeah.
From the self-deprecating attitude that they have.
Yeah, and I know actually, in my head now that I'm thinking about it, I know a lot of people that do that because it, you know, everyone's gonna go to them. Oh, you're actually like a really good dog trainer. Like, don't worry
They get
about
validation.
it. Yeah.
Like they're like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about now. But you can tell that is that's almost like a little mask.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like their way of getting relevance.
Yeah.
That is, I hadn't even thought about those people, but now that you mentioned that makes perfect sense. It's interesting. Okay, well, Kelly, that was a really good topic. Now, I know I've done this podcast for a bunch of episodes, several years. People haven't seen you and us talking yet. They've seen you in a lot of my videos. You do great decoy work.
Thank you.
So. You decoy for all my dogs. You decoy for the club. Great decoy work. But for the people that don't know you a whole lot, how can they reach out to you? How can they find you? How can they get more content that you put out?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. It's kjk9dt.com, all numbers and letters. And then all of my social media stuff is usually KJK9 or KJK9.dogtraining, something like that. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok.
And what services do you offer at KJK9?
For Central Texas, I offer board and train, private lessons, and dog boarding primarily.
And you also do some protection training?
I would feel wrong, I think, at this point in my progress as a decoy to really be charging people for anything other than like, I need a video for decoy camp, style stuff.
Yeah.
So honestly, I usually send them your way.
Okay. Well, there's that nice attitude again. We were talking about, because you could have easily said, oh yeah, I can do this, and that, which wouldn't be wrong. But I could totally see that, you're actually a pretty decent decoy.
Thank you.
And and then you have this, which I think is healthy again. But thank you, Kelly. It was great talking to you, and hopefully we'll do more of these.
Yeah, for sure.